consultants. And we're doing this in August because August to me is the most important month, because I don't know about you. My son is going back to school today. Yes, we are going back to normal, and now it's like the time where it's like we had like the slow mornings and so on. Now it's the time when we need to get back in gear and make sure that we finish the year strong. But also for anybody who's involved in sales as well or wants to grow their business, sales is a lag measure, right? So what we're doing now shows up in 8 weeks from now. So, and a lot of mistakes that consultants make when they're going to the summer, they just business as usual. And then come Thanksgiving around that time, like Halloween, Thanksgiving, it kind of like dies down. And especially when it comes to sales. And then in January, February, it hits us because that's when we feel that slump, right? Also, we are again, so in August, coming out of that and re-energizing us is like super super important. Second, we live in very interesting times, yes. And so we have very weird client behavior right now. People make logical decisions for emotional reasons, and so everything that's going on. And we need to manage ourselves with everything that's going on. Yes, we need to energize ourselves, we need to show up as the best version of ourselves, and so on. And we know from the last like recessions and economic downturns that there is one lever, one mechanism that makes all the difference, and that is habits. Okay, and I'm not making this up. um, because there's research behind it. I will share the data with you in a moment. But what we are discussing, what I want you today is understand the 6 habits, then pick the one habit that you, or maybe let me rephrase that, understand which habits are currently working for you and what is the one habit that you need to develop in order to gain that momentum that we want as we come out of or as we're back to school, right? And then have a 3-step plan. So you all have workbooks. If you don't have a workbook, and if you're just watching this here on because you're streaming, don't worry about the workbook. You can follow along as well. I will draw some graphs that you easily can recreate on a blank sheet of paper and a pen. Yes. Hey, Joseph is here. Joseph is actually a client, right? Are you just checking out Joseph, like how I'm delivering? Cool. Love it. Um, so again, it's like you should have this workbook. If not, then that's fine. I will guide you through this. And for those who have a workbook, there's a lot of information about backgrounds, and so I highly encourage you to read it. But the only sheet that you need today is really the last one, which is all the way on the bottom. Uh, this sheet here, right now, 2 sheets. This sheet and that sheet. All right. So that's the only 2 sheets that you need for today. Um, and everything else you can put aside and you can read later. Hopefully, you have read it already. So let's talk about high performance habits. So um, I haven't made up those habits. There's a High Performance Institute, which was formed by my coach and teacher, Brandon Bashar. And Brandon, they wanted to know what makes a high performer a high performer. And so, Mara, are you looking for something? Can I help you? Just put it in the chat, and then I see if I can respond to that later. All right. So, so they looked at about 105 variables that we know from human resources and and other fields, behavioral science, on high performance. And high performance is identified as being able to achieve results beyond standard norms over the long term while maintaining healthy relationships. And for so many of us, especially when we have our own business, we're growing our business. As consultants, we service our clients and we want to sell. And usually, what happens is when the big book of business is full, we neglect sales. And then when that assignment dies down or comes to a natural end, we fall into that slump. And then we have those feast and famine cycles. Yes, everybody knows what I'm talking about. And so we will so and then we work hard hours. A lot of consultants start their own business, they lose their relationship with their kids, with their significant other, and then feel that they are not a couple anymore, a family anymore, but just roommates. Connection to friends, community, meaning of life, and so on. And so the High Performance Institute looked at what makes a high performer, and they put in 105 HR variables, and they came out with unexpectedly with 6 specific habits that make a high performer, meaning they have the ability to achieve results beyond standard norms over the long term without jeopardizing health and relationships. And I promised you in my emails that I'm not going to share with you. Um, I'm not going but I'm not going to share PowerPoint slides with you. I'll give you 2, okay? So that you can screenshot them also and get this information. All right. So here's what they did. Right. So they looked at a million high performance index assessments. If you want to take this assessment, just DM me or put here in the chat assessment, and I send you a link that you can take the assessment. That will give you a report. Like Joe, they've already done that, right? So will give you a report on the where you stand, and with some pieces of advice of what you can do to move this forward. But they looked at a million of those, and they interviewed 300 employees, looked at 1.6 million case studies, 2 million newsletter subscribers, to in whoever was in the system. And they so 6 things that I did: global surveys, structured one-on-one interviews with the top 5% of the high performers that they could find. They analyzed the data and had their data peer reviewed, but also they reviewed other literature, and and I also looked at empirical results from high performance training and coaching. And so what they found, let me here, is these: of the 100 plus performance variables, there are 6 that came out. And what they wanted to look at is, are those deliberate activities that people do, right? So are those observable behaviors? Are they trainable, and are they effective across different domains, professions, and culture and context, and so on? So and out came the 6 habits that we are discussing today. The interesting part here is, like, here's what they found did not make a high performer, which is what we have been taught for years, right? So stick with it, work hard, um, focus on your strength. With a realized strength, age, experience, um, compensation has nothing to do with being a high performer or not. There's no correlation between these activities and the definition of high performance. Okay, so what they realized, it's these 6 habits. That was these 6 habits, and that was a total surprise to them. And you are here right now to learn about them. Sounds good? Yes, Myra. So you have you printed out the wrong worksheets. Cool. You can follow. You can follow along anyway. Cool. So so I just want you to take this worksheet, and if you do not have a worksheet, don't sweat it, right? So all you got to do is draw a circle, right? If your circle looks a little bit like just this, totally fine, all right? If it's like more like an oval, totally fine. Don't worry about it. Just draw a circle, and then once you have that circle, like here, that would be a perfect circle. You cut it in half, and then you put a Scottish cross inside, and then you have roughly 6 equal sized pieces of the pie. Yes, follow? So let's talk about the first high performance habits. The first one, we start here on the left, is clarity. So, and what I'm going to do, instead of going through them one by one, I would want you to fill out this wheel with me as I explain them to you, and then rate yourself. What you will see here in this on this wheel, that in the middle it says 0%, and up here it says 100%. And in between, there is no scale. Yes, no scale. Why? Because for the purpose of this exercise, it doesn't matter. I want you to rate based on your gut feeling. So it doesn't matter if you're at 48 or 52, you're roughly in the middle. Yes, it doesn't matter if you're 25 or 20 or 15, you're roughly in the lower quarter. Yes, so that's all you've got to do. So that's why I want you to totally ignore these guys here in the middle. And all you, as we go through the exercise, I want you to draw lines uh, roughly where you rate yourself. All right? Everybody follows? Cool. So then let's start with clarity. Clarity. So the question that I have for you, how clear are you about your 5 business motivators right now in your business? So the 5 business motivators are um, positioning, how you position yourself, the quality of your product, the profits that you're making, the prospects that you have in the pipeline, and the processes, the 5 Ps, right? And the processes that you have in place to deliver to your clients, to manage your teams, to manage your processes inside, work with your technology, and so on. Are you clear? If I looked at your worksheet right now, looked at your worksheet, your calendar right now, if would I be able to extract exactly what are the 2 main business motivators that you're working on right now? And if not, then like if you are overwhelmed right now and your book is full and you hardly can get the work fit into a week and you work weekends as well and late nights, then it's most likely that you are not clear, either not clear on what the 2 most important business motivators are for you, or um, you have too many distractions, shiny objects, yes, or competing distractions, right? So if you have kids, they need you, right? So, but then again, how do you deal with these kind of um, situations when they arise? Are you also absolutely clear on what you must do in order to move your project forward? Give an example from my personal life. When my wife and I built a house in Ireland, and at one point we had this architect come with a blueprint. So it's a huge document. We looked at it. It took us a while to figure out where what was, and then we found the kitchen, and she and I had a 2-hour conversation about, what's what the kitchen should be look like, right? So where the oven is and the fridge and so on. Awesome conversation for 2 hours. Only problem was we didn't have the building permission yet, so we spent 2 hours on a meaningful conversation, but we did not actually move the project forward. If we just had spent 10 minutes on filing the building permission, um, you would have made more progress, right? So that's the question I want you to answer here. So how much clarity do you have right now? And so maybe you're here, you're at a rough 50%. Maybe you're totally clear and said, that's not my issue. Then you draw your line here. Maybe you have no clarity at all and you're kind of like bouncing around and winging it as things come. Then you may be lower here on the closer to the middle. Make sense? Cool. Let's talk about productivity that ties in. Are you absolutely clear what you must do to move things forward? And every day, do you actually focus on these activities first? So do you have the ability to blend out every single distraction, including shiny objects, right? So do you get your things done? Do you have a calendar that here's my key question. Do you have a calendar like this? Do you manage your calendar the same way that you've done when you were an employee? Or do you have a success calendar that is geared towards entrepreneurship? Meaning that you manage your activities based on your energy. You don't, for example, you don't mix sales activities that need a totally different energy with um, working all the clutter. Because organizing clutter and being there for your clients, total kind of energy. And if you need to switch all the time, can be very difficult. We talk about energy in a moment as well. So how productive are you? And you just rate yourself and draw a line. Next thing is courage. And here, let me do this here so that you know where you are. Fourth thing is courage. Okay, courage is super important. Why? Because we know that people that are very, very courageous are also happy in life. Yes. Why? Because they know that you know success is a matter of making the right decisions, and making the right decisions is a matter of experience, and experience very often comes from failure. So when they fail, they in their head they're like, you know what, um, I'm just one step closer to success. Yes, and they don't care so much what other people say, so they stretch themselves. If you have not majorly failed last week in something, you have not stretched yourself enough, you have not shown enough courage. So I always get nervous when people, I don't know, when I hire people and the candidate tells me I never make any mistakes, that is a red flag. Yes. We want people that stretch themselves, that have the courage to go out and do something like this. Yes, and you give a workshop and some people hate you and some people like you and some people don't show up, and so whatever, but right now there are like a few people watching, like on different channels and so on, and I don't know what they're thinking. Yes, so but you need courage, and so if you haven't good indicators, if you haven't majorly failed last week, uh, there's some room to grow. All right, that's all I'm saying. So draw a line wherever you feel it needs to be. Then let's talk about influence. Influence is the fourth habit. That's the ability to rally your team and your stakeholders around your cause. With team and stakeholders, I mean your family, right? So, for example, when we were in lockdown, or now during the long summer break, so when you need to do something like this, or you need to serve clients, and you have your 10-year-old or 11-year-old sitting out, will they support you? Do they understand what you're doing, and that they need to do their share, right? So my son knows, he's 11. He knows that he is responsible for the dishwasher and the trash and the recycling. Yes. And so are you engaging your significant others, like and support your family? Your family members, by the way, are typically the ones that want to pull you back. Yes. Because they know, not because they don't support you, because they love you, right? Because we are the crazy ones. Yes, so we are we are starting a business, and we know that the majority of businesses fail, right? And we know that there are consultants and coaches out there that are struggling to make 60K a year, right? So we are the crazy ones, and they love us, and they want to pull us back, and we need to have the ability to influence them. That's number one. Number two is on your client teams. Um, when you go to clients, and I don't know about you, but every time I go and I want to implement like any kind of transformation process, especially when it includes software, there's always pushback because now we have never done this way. It doesn't work that way. We are different. There's that one feature we've always had that's not there anymore, and so on. And now we need to influence people to utilize or to use and make work what they already have before they request something that is not already there. So, what's your ability to reframe those objections, to move your team, to take a team like that and have you support your goals? Okay. So that's influence. So, and you just rate yourself where you think you are. There's no judgment here whatsoever. Just do it like that. Then, fine, let's talk about energy. Energy is the fifth high performance habit. And energy is like, how do you have daily activities to re-energize yourself in terms of walking, taking a break, going out in the sun for half an hour? Do you have hourly habits like standing up, doing some vinyasas or breathing exercises so that energizes you. What do you do on a weekly basis? Do you take at least one day off? And with off, I mean you're not working. And with not working, I mean that reading business literature is working. Yes, or a business journal, right? So can you take off? Do you feel energized? Do you do you have the nutrition and the sleep and the rest that you need in order to be like on top when your clients need you? Because your clients don't want you burned out. They want you when you're on fire, right? So how much on fire are you all the time when you show up for your clients? How much energy is left when you come um, back to your family and you have dinner? And you know, how often do you bring the negative energy from a previous meeting or meetings of the day home? Or you're at home, you think at work, and when you work, you think at home. And now your energy is kind of like is not where mental and physical energy is not where you are. So those are the questions I want you to answer, and just draw a line wherever you think is appropriate. And uh, finally, we will talk about experience or necessity. What I mean with experience is, in when I coach my clients, I often ask them, look, if everything, all your dreams came true, you had all the money in the world, money would not be an issue anymore, right? You don't need to think about or worry about money whatsoever. What would you do differently? And usually I get the answer, you know what? Oh, I would read more. I would spend more time with my sons or daughters or kids or my wife or my significant other. I would travel more. I don't know, do more yoga or sit more on the beach and enjoy life, right? So whatever. They describe a totally different person than as they show up today, right? And the challenge with that is they will never achieve their goal because they don't build in the experiences that they want. And if you never build it into your calendar, when do you expect it to happen? It's not going to happen, right? So, what are the experiences that you are missing out on? Are there any experiences that you're missing out on? Is there anything that you would do differently, energy-wise, that you would do differently if money was not important? The other question is, what is your necessity? I've learned from my clients that the ones that who do not get the results with me initially is because they don't have enough necessity, because they either have a spouse with a second income, or income is good enough to pay the bills, and it's kind of like comfortable, a little bit discomfort there, but not enough to take action. So one of the teachings I always give them is, if you want to make if money matters to you, so write this down because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. If money matters to you, make money matter. And what I mean with that is, what's the purpose of the money that you bring in? Um, for some people, it may be some volunteer job in their free time, like a pet food pantry. If a client has a food runs a food pantry or wants to make a difference in the Latino communities, for example, right? And that drives them. Selfish people here, if it's for you just to be rich and not have to worry about money anymore and have a bigger house and drive a better car, awesome. As long as you have a why and enough that is strong enough to keep you move forward and make, yeah, again, as long as your why makes your money matter. That's all I'm saying. If it matters to you, or it's just to get your just quote unquote to get your kids through college, totally fine. So just uh, rate yourself right now, not in terms of necessity, but in terms of the experiences that you want in life, and how much of those you already have. When you're done, here's what you're going to do. So you now have this wheel, and I want you to scribble it out here in the middle a little. So I have the beauty and the advantages of technology. if you do not have, if you just have a little pen, then it's totally okay to just fill it out like this. The engineers that I'm working with, they usually have very straight lines, uh, you know, like so. The project managers, they just scribble out like that. And then the artists do it like this. Doesn't matter. You just, as long as it looks a little bit solid in the middle. And now I want you to look at this wheel and ask yourself the following question. If this was the four wheels on your car, how fast could you go? How smooth would the ride be? So, and if your answer right now is, oh, that would be not so too fast and bumpy, then welcome to the club. That's the experience that we all have when we start out, right? But you now have a visual representation of how you feel. Okay, so what I really want you to do is put that on a wall. And for the rest of this more time, what we want to discuss is how can we smooth out that wheel and then make it bigger. Yes? Follow? Make sense? So there are two ways to do this. One way of not doing this is to look at, which is what people in the corporate world do, right? So, but we are not in the corporate world. We run our own consultant company or firm. We need a better approach. But what people in the corporate world do is they look at each of those areas and then have a business plan or an action plan for each of them. Yes, and even one of my heroes, Tony Robbins, will uh, promotes like in his rapid planning method, a massive action plan, and then like 500 action items. Right, that what Tony does, he clusters that then, which is totally cool. But I don't want you to go through this exercise right now. I want to give you a shortcut. Okay, so the shortcut is, which by the way I've also learned from Tony Robbins. So I'm just saying that because we're all standing on the show on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. So just give credit to the people I've learned from, and one is Brennan Bashar, the other one is Tony Robbins. But so what we are going to do here is we have learned over time that when we pick one area that we want to build out, it very often has a positive effect on everything else. For example, you could say, if I had more clarity, yes, if I had more clarity, then I would be more productive. If I'd be productive and get more done, I wouldn't feel so dragged down, and I had more energy, and that in turn would allow me to build into my calendar some of the experiences that I want. Yes, there could be one path. Another path could be, and I'm sharing that with you because there's no right or wrong. Another path could be, you know what, if I had more courage and I would take a leap of faith or do things that I'm afraid of or stretch myself more or allow myself to, which is one of the teachings I give my clients all the time. I give you permission to suck. Yes. And I have that courage to suck. Okay. So if I did that, I that eventually would give me more clarity on what works and what doesn't work and the direction that I need to go. And that would in turn energize me. And with that increase of energy, I would also be able to influence people more because I show up as a different person. Does that make sense? So I want right now, I just want you to pick one of those areas. And um, in this case, let's take that, let's say it would be clarity. And so put a star in there. I'll just give you another color here. I'll give you a red star. This is as much of good as a star as I can make. Yes, and then you write, I am not the master of whatever your area is. In this case, would be clarity, comma, yet. And the yet is important because it presupposes that you will be perfect eventually. Yes? So now that you have that, the next question that I have for you, is there an area in this wheel of high performance, is there a habit that you're the master of. For example, you could say, yes, I'm the master of productivity, right? So because I have a calendar, I have a to-do list, and I click them off, and I always get my work done. Or, you know what, yeah, I'm the master of courage. I just push the bar higher and take more risks at any given time, right? So maybe that's you. Or maybe it's, yeah, like influence is not my problem. Once I talk to people, I'm going to sign them up as clients, right? It's just like, having everything else is where I'm not so great. So you pick one area where you believe you are the master of. In this case, I just randomly pick courage. Yes, and I'm the master of courage, which is not. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm the master of courage. Okay. So if you have an area of mastery right now, here's my question to you: the area in which you are not the master of. Oh no, let me stop. The area, scratch that. The area where you are not the master of, no, the master of. The area where you are the one in which you are the master of is that, have you treated this in the past as an option, or is it a must? Do it all the time, or only when it's convenient. So, for example, if courage was the area of mastery, do you always do something new, try something new, allow yourself to fail, push for higher standards, new ways of doing things, taking risks more than others, right? Is that you know is that a must or an option? If you do it all the time, it's probably a must. Yes. Same with influence, right? So is it working with your teams and rallying the team behind you, your support team, your project management team, your client team, your vendor team, whatever the team is, all of the above, right? So working with them and influencing them, is that something that is a must or an option? Most likely, if the area that you picked is a must. Yes, you agree? Okay, cool. So thank you for nodding. So that's a no, no. So my next question is, the area where you are not the master of, whatever you pick, that's where you have the red star. Is it possible that you have treated that as an option in the past and not a must? And exactly, I can see from the faces here, you've treated it as an option. So my question to you is, if you treated that area where you are not the master of yet as a must instead of an option, would you be able to build out that wheel? Yeah, 100%. Yes, because you've already showed me that you have the ability to be the master of something because you made it a must. Yes. So if you made the decision here and now that you will make that a must and act accordingly instead of treating an option, you will become a high performer for sure. Yes. Um, Hope that was already very insightful. So what I want you to do right now is up here. Here's my focus area. Yes, up here. I'll give you another color so that you see this better. My focus area is, in this case, would be clarity. And um, you can do this after, but there are four questions I want you to ask yourself right now, which is, what is already good about my focus area? Number one. Number two, what have I learned about my focus area? Number three, what am I willing to make it how I want it? And number four, what am I willing to not do how I want it? I would like to guide you through this, because this instrument that I'm showing you right now, whatever your program is, I'm using the same wheel. I'm here in Austin, Texas with my clients. Some of them are Fortune 500 companies. I went on site and I kicked off like transformation processes with 100 people. And I gave them all that same wheel and guided them through it, so that after an hour and a half, they all found their own answers. And that enabled me to do a few things. A, establish a conversation around the key topics that I want to talk about. And they have already admitted at this point that they have a mass area that they need to build out, and that they've treated as an option, and they've already made the commitment to treat it as a must. So now when you work with the team, you can work through the issues in a much different way. Okay, so when you talk about, let's go through this and talk what is already good about my focus area. What I really want from you is 3 answers that you can write down. And the reason why I want these 3 answers is because um, most organizations, when there's something wrong, the conversation is always about everything that went wrong. Who made the mistake? Who can we penalize? Who do we need to put on a performance improvement program? Who can we charge back? Who needs to pay for this? Who do we need to fire? What vendor we need to change, and so on? And only 20% on the solution. And I want you to turn this around and think more in terms of solutions, so that you can move yourself and your teams and your clients forward. So the first question is designed for you to look in different areas in your brain already. Number two question is, what have I learned about my focus area? Also very important, because same psychology, right? So now, what are the learnings? And instead of thinking about what went wrong, you already start looking in parts of your brain that are designed to find you a solution in terms of what have I learned and how can I move myself forward. How do I do it better next time? And then 3, what am I willing to do to make it how I want it? And this is here. So, what are the solutions that you have in place right now, that come to mind, that will help you build out that piece of the pie? Okay, and so whatever comes to mind, just write down the 3. I usually push my clients to give those answers in a short period of time, because um, there's a strategic value in a short deadline. Yes, so, cool. So that third question is also not so important to me. Why? Because most likely you've given answers that you already knew and have already tried one way or the other, and it hasn't worked yet. So that's why we have the fourth question, which is, what am I willing to not do how I want it? And with that, I mean, it's like, what are the decisions? What's the deliberate decision? Coming back to clarity, yes. What are the deliberate decisions of the activities that you will not do, of the opportunities that you will not take on, because either ethical, moral beliefs, strategy, whatever the reasons are, and you write this down here. Okay. So now comes the real issue. The answer to your problem, the real answer, are in the answers of that last question. The 3 questions before are really just there to rewire your brain, get out all the negativity, and then go back to a positive, um, yeah, and then, yeah, again, and then write down where you draw the line. And most likely you haven't gotten results yet in those areas, because somewhere in those answers that you just gave is an activity that, if you did it, that's the answer. For example, I had somebody who didn't sell, right? Did everything: social media selling, email selling, cold call, no, no, social media selling, going to conferences, buying ads for conference banners, and so on, right? So, uh, updating their website, everything, right? Didn't sell. And that person said, Andrew, the only thing I'm not going to do, where I draw the line, is cold calling, because I hate it. And I said, you know what? It's the only thing I haven't tried yet. Maybe you should try that. So maybe it's time. And so there was like a mental block, right? For number one, he didn't know how to do it right. He didn't want to come across as a car salesperson, and so on. And so we just had to develop a strategy that felt great. And then he started cold calling and he started selling. Was the answer. Okay. Usually there's something in there, that we have resisted for so long. That's where the growth is. That comes back to courage. Okay. So now we need to take something on that feels counterproductive, doesn't feel right at the beginning. By the way, whenever you do something new, it doesn't feel right. Yes, when you implement something new, at first it doesn't work, and or you sometimes you even make a step back first, right? I think Tony Robbins always gives that example of Tiger Woods when he just reinvented. He was already at the top of his game, and then he reinvented this backswing or whatever. And at first, it didn't work, and but he kept doing it and practicing it, and that then gave Tiger Woods the new leap that he was looking for. That's usually what it is. Your answer to everything right now is in that last question. Does it make sense? So, and what I want you to do now is look at those answers and ask yourself a few questions. Number one is, what connections do you need to grow now? Sorry, what connections do you need to grow now in order to make a change? Meaning, who do you need to talk to? Yes, who do you need to talk to in order to be able to move yourself forward? By the way, uh, your in the workbook is a link to meet with me. It's like meetandrewlawless.com. Very easy, meetandrewlawless.com. Just go there and schedule time with me if you want to discuss that with me. Totally okay. I'd be happy to have that conversation. But outside of that, also, who else do you need to talk to? Do you need to talk to your spouse, your partner, your team, your vendors, your clients, right? Three questions I want you to answer is, you know, where do you need more clout, more influence, yes, in order to grow connections? And the most successful influencers in the world, they do three things. They make people think differently about their problems, they challenge them to take meaningful action, and they role model the way. Okay, so if you look at Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates was always about, he made us think differently about the computer. And when it's hard to believe now, but when he started out, he had this vision of a computer on every desk in every home. People were laughing at him. Yes, and look where we are right now. Jeff Bezos, when he started out, I met him in 1996 or 97. I was working for Germany's second largest publishing house, and Jeff was looking for a $5 million investment in Amazon, which he didn't get because my boss, the owner of the company, didn't want to jeopardize the bookstore sales channel. Think about that. If they had invested $5 million in Amazon back then, where would they be today? Yes. So again, so that's we'll talk about influence, um, and how can you make people rally around yourself and have that connection. What are the wins for them? What's in it for them? And um, what are the peers that you can reach out to for help and support? Number two, seek clarity. Okay. In other words, what are the goals that you need to set yourself for yourself right now? With goals, I mean, are really smart goals, right? Like specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Right? What are the goals that you need to set for yourself in order to build out that one area? Number three, what are your prolific quality outputs that gets you there? So prolific quality outputs is a very interesting concept in high performance uh, coaching, which is, what are the activities that move you forward the fastest? For example, if you wanted to sell and you are not so good with video, but you're a good writer, right? So then maybe you need to write more and do less videos, fewer videos. Um, if you want to sell, you need to make offers, right? So you need to talk to people and so on. So, what are the activities that give you the outcomes and the outputs that you need in order to make um, progress? And lastly, how do you need to show up as the best version of yourself? So with that, what I mean is here's a little bit of a high performance habit that I want you to implement right now. So when you look at your day is a series of transitions. Yes. So you go from your home to your home office. That is a transition. You read emails and then you go from emails to a client call. That is a transition. From a client call, you do a presentation like that. That's a transition. From there, you go and have lunch with your significant other or your kids. That's a transition. Yes. At the end of the day, you go to the gym, and that's a transition. And in this transition, uh, what I want you to do right now after this call, never ever book hours for book meetings for an hour. Book them for 50 minutes, and then spend 10 minutes on making a decision how you show up as the best version of yourself. So the way we do this in high performance coaching is, we close our eyes and we just go through a release exercise where we release all the stress in our brains and our thoughts and so on, all the tension that we have, and then make a decision. How are we going to show up as the best version of ourselves in that next meeting after this transition? For me, that was important. For example, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, with my wife and I, we were at our property in Ireland, and it was January. And if you've ever been in Galway, Ireland, in January, it rains like crazy, most blustery days. And but on that one Monday night, we found like one of our nieces was available as a babysitter. So we said, we go on a date. Yes. And we went on the date, and it was raining, was blustery, and so it was cold. It was a miserable day. Nobody was out. And so before we left, my wife and I, we go through the same exercise. We're like, okay, how do I show up as the best version of how do I show up as the best husband in the history of the universe? Yes, and she has the same question. How do I show up as the best wife in the history of the universe? And if you go on a date with your wife, it's all about her, right? It's not about you. It's not about dinner. It's not about the quality of the food. It's not about the venue. It's about being present, and it's all about her. So of course, we went to the restaurant. It was raining so hard. We found a parking spot right in front of the restaurant. Just getting out of the car into the building, we were soaking wet. We were only one out of two couples in the entire restaurant. It was cold. The wine was cold. The food was bad. The waiter was slow. And in old times, I would have dragged my wife and said, let's go somewhere else. I would have called for the manager and complained and sent back the food, what have you. But I knew it's all about her, right? And food doesn't matter. And so we had one of the best dates we've ever had in our like now like 15-year relationship. And we were so happy that we did, because little did we know that that would have been the last date for at least 2 years, because then like 2 months later we went into lockdown for COVID. So make every encounter matter, and you do that by setting an intention. That's what I mean with like, how do I show up as the best version of ourselves? We have a lot of other activities in high performance coaching that I'd be happy to share with you. You have the link to get in touch with me, meetandrewlawless.com. Be happy to share more with you and build a plan with you. And then lastly, it's about um, showing courage. Okay, so showing courage means, in particular, um, be clear on the forces that drive your behavior. All right, so there are two forces that drive behavior. One is the is the need to avoid pain. The other one is the desire to gain pleasure. And when they are not aligned, if you want if you hate your job but you don't have another job offer, you're not going to move, for example, right? Your client teams, if they believe that the solution that we have in mind is a great solution, but on the other hand implementing is more difficult and more stressful than enduring the current situation, they're not going to move, right? So be clear about the forces and align them in the right direction. The third one is skill. Courage is a matter of skill. The more skilled we are, the more competent we feel, the more courage we show. Yes, and we often like doing presentations like that, speaking in front of 1,000 people or 3,000 people. Um, the first time we do it, there's stage fright, and we can hardly, you know, get our thoughts straight, and we're super nervous what people are think about us, and so on. And I don't know, like I've done presentations now for decades, and my first one sucked. Yes, I tried to this. So, but the more often I did, the better. Like this one here, doing an hour of instructions and coaching people through, their situation and helping them find their own answers. Um, there's like 10 years of practice behind it. Yes, and all kind of mistakes. And now I have the technology set up and the routine, and I've had so many issues that I dealt with. I can do that on the fly. If you ask me to write one after this call, I can. Yes. So skill is directly related to courage and competence. And the second one is action. Okay. Action is more important than words. And with action, I also mean the ability to make decisions. We know that the more decisions you make, the better that your decisions become over time. And one of the first questions I ask my clients is, when was the last time you made a major decision to make a major change, major move? And usually they go like, it was a few years ago. Yes, yeah. And then of course, because you're not used to making decisions, your decisions will always be lacking something. So the more decisions you make, the more actions you take, the more courage you build, and the more experience and more competent you'll become. So these are the focuses that I want you to work on moving forward. And if you did that here in the corner of connections and courage, um, there is wellness. Yes. If you have um, good relationships, and you, we know that courageous people are also happier and more fulfilled in life. That's wellness. Okay. In the corner of connections and seeking clarity, that's where you get results beyond standard norms. Yes, because if you're very clear on what you want and how to get after it, and you can mobilize your support team to get things done, that's when you get the results. And most consultants fail because they all want to do it by themselves, or they have not enough clarity, or the relationship with their client teams, with their client stakeholders, with their client bosses, superiors, is not strong enough to get the support that they need. And then it's going to be difficult to get the results. And in the corner of clarity and courage, that's where resilience is. Yes. And resilience means that you get those results over time. Because if you have clarity and uh, you stretch yourself all the time, re-energize you accordingly, you will be able to keep that game up. I hope that was so. That's it. So here's your action plan. Now your job is at home to decide what what is the one action that you want to take in each of those areas, and then go home, decide, and make a deliberate decision on three things. What do you start doing right now? What do you need to stop doing right now? And number three is, who do you need to talk to? All right. And then I would love if you share with me your results, either here in the comment wherever you see this video, or send me an email, or send me a DM. But most importantly, what I really, really want is that you take action. All right. Do something. Pick that one thing that feels most uncomfortable and move that forward, and you will get your results. And if you want feedback, just schedule a 15 minutes call with me. Meet andrewlawless.com. What we're going to do is we will be looking at your situation and where you want to go. what's currently holding you back and what's in the way. And then we build like that 3-step plan that I gave you. We will build that out in much more detail so that you can move forward. So it's called meetandrewlawless.com is the URL. You get a little bit of a welcome video, and then on the right you can pick a date, and then we're going to meet. All right, super. I wish you good rest of the week and a good weekend. Bye. Where is my, here we go.